Good morning. Good morning. I want to check if you can hear me. Anyone? If you can hear
me. Can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, morning, Captain.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Very well.
Good morning. We can hear you loud and clear.
Aaron as well.
Yes.
Great. Good. I see we can. I can be heard. Just want to be sure that Gladwell, are we good to go? Gladwell, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. We're good to go.
Is the president in?
Yes, he is in.
The president is in?
Yes.
All right. So I guess in the interest of time then, we can kick off the webinar so that we can have and spend much more time in discussions. I know we have quite a number of people that have registered to join in, but so that we save on time, I will request that we proceed and then they join us as we go. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first webinar of this year for AESATA. And for those that are new to AESATA, allow me just 1 minute to introduce to you what AESATA is. So the Association of Eastern and Southern Africa Travel Agents is an umbrella organization that brings together 12 national travel agents associations from 12 countries within our Eastern and Southern Africa region. The association was formally registered about 5 years ago, but the whole idea of travel agents working together has been around for a couple of decades. So myself, Nicanor Sabula, I'm the acting CEO for AESATA. I volunteer my time as a CEO of AESATA, but on a full-time basis, I am the CEO of the Kenya Association of Travel Agents, who currently are hosting the headquarter or the secretariat office of AESATA. And perhaps before I hand this over to our speakers and our president to be able to make his remarks, I also wanted to introduce to you Madam Gladwell Mugo, who works with me very, very closely as a AESATA Secretariat Coordinator. She's the one that literally runs the organization on a day-to-day basis. I wanted to just introduce to her. Gladwell, if you could please unmute, put on your camera so that the participants can just see you, and maybe you say hi, then I come back and hand over to and speak briefly about today's event and then hand over to the president. Gladwell.
Good morning. My name is Gladwell Muko, AESATA Secretariat Coordinator, and thank you for joining us during this first webinar of the year.
Thank you very much. So that's Gladwell, if you've not seen her. So ladies and gentlemen, this morning we really are privileged to be joined by our two colleagues who are very good friends of AESATA. They've been very, very supportive of this association for a couple of years now. We work with them. One is Captain Gilbert Kibe. Captain Gilbert Kibe is the immediate former Director General of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, who has also become a very, very good friend of ours and very knowledgeable in matters air transport. And so he will be also be sharing with us in the topic today. And then the other person, again, well known to many of us across the continent, has worked in the airline space for many years and currently is a CEO of the Association of the Airline Association of Southern Africa, I guess, Aaron Neti. who has also been with us and quite very knowledgeable in matters of air travel here in Kenya. And this webinar, we continue with our conversation of how do we unlock the travel opportunities across the region. And I think there's been a lot of there's a lot that's happening across the continent. Air access has become key. We are seeing improved movement of persons. There's quite some good focused conversation on intra-Africa travel and trade with the coming of the AFCFTA. Quite some good enablers that also we are putting in place. And it's incumbent upon us as a practitioners to be able to push our governments to realize this dream of an enhanced air travel, but also trade within our region, and intra-Africa tourism becoming a driver of that. So before we hand it over to our speakers for the day, and they'll be able to share much more in-depthly on the subject, I wanted to ask the president, Mr. Mustafa Katau, who is the president of AESATA, to make his opening remarks. And if possible, Mustafa, I would just like you to do for me one thing. If there are other board members of AESATA that have joined us, we can also you can also take that opportunity to just introduce them briefly in your remarks before we hand this over to our speakers for the day. Over to you, Mustafa.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you, Nick and Gladwell, for putting this webinar together. And I'm sure with Captain Gilbert and Aaron, we'll do justice to this subject for today. So I would like to also welcome our board members of AESATA, Dr. Joseph Kititu from Qatar. I'm sure you are online. Mr. Ken Banda from Malawi, are you there? And any other board member who is present here, please take this opportunity to switch on your cameras and introduce yourself. I won't take much of your time. We'll just leave it to Nick and Gladwell to lead us through this webinar. Thank you and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've seen a couple of board members, but maybe at an opportune time we'll get a chance to introduce them. So we will then jump straight onto the subject of the day today. And I want to invite Captain Kibe, perhaps to take onto the stage as the first presenter. And then thereafter, we'll be able to have Aaron Munetsi, and after that, we can have just a conversation amongst us. I would be happy to be able to facilitate that conversation between the participants and our speakers for the day. Over to you, Captain. Just give us your presentation before you hand it over to Aaron.
All right, good day, everybody. Thank you so much, Nick and Mr. President. Thank you for inviting me and Aaron to come and join all of you distinguished members of the travel agency sector for another brief and update on an assignment that we have been given. So I will be sharing my screen in a moment. Nick, can you see my screen?
Yes, Captain, we can see you.
Yes, it's visible. Yes, you can see it.
Is it on full screen now?
No, you may want to put it on. Yes, now you're on full screen.
Okay, just hold on. Let me put off my camera. Then second. Okay, I'm back. Confirm you can see the full screen?
Yes, we can see the full screen.
Excellent. So thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, today we're looking at unlocking Africa's potential, overcoming barriers to intra-Africa trade. You remember last year in Kigali when we met, we had quite a discussion about this. So today we want to see whether there has been any change since then, and whether there are any challenges still obtaining, and whether there are new opportunities that have come up. Now, inter-travel, as you've seen, is crucial. Intra-Africa travel is crucial for fostering economic growth and regional integration. We have vast opportunities, but numerous obstacles hinder our movement across the border. So we shall explore the key challenges and propose solutions today. So let's go to the first slide. Today, everybody knows we have high airfares and very limited air connectivity. Competition is also very limited. Agreements, especially among governments, are very restrictive, in particular, bilateral air service agreements and other government or regulatory situation makes it very, very restrictive. This brings high operational costs and they contribute to inflated ticket prices. You all know that African airfares are the highest globally. We are the poorest continent with the highest airfares in the world. So we have financial sustainability challenges for airlines and reduced frequencies, poor connectivity, and generally low performance, resulting in a global traffic for Africa of only 2%. It hasn't changed. Now, regulatory barriers. We have been very, very slow to implement SATA. I'm sad to say that SATA, the Single Africa Air Transport Market, has not yet been implemented. For those of you who do not know what SATA means, it is an African Union flagship project known as the Single Africa Air Transport Market. SATA declares that all of Africa should be an open sky. We should have liberalized airspace so that in effect, when you travel in Africa as an African airline with African people, you are operating in a domestic field, not international. But today, even your neighbor is international. Therefore, the taxes, fees, and charges that come into the cost of your ticket are treated as international instead of domestic. Domestic, of course, would bring those costs down by 90%. So there's also a regulatory misalignment. Our regulations are not harmonized across Africa. It's only in EAC, the East African Community, where all our regulations among the civil aviation authorities are harmonized and are 100% identical. There are other regional economic communities like ECOWAS who are pretty close to achieving the same harmonization. The southern states of SADC are also trying to get there, but we're not quite there yet. And that is something that we really, really need to work on. We need to harmonize our regulations so that we're operating under the same rules wherever you operate in Africa. There's a lack of political will. Political will is required for SATAM to be implemented. When we say political will, that means the highest offices in each state in Africa. The political and executive people in Africa have not yet understood or accepted that there are benefits in SATA. And therefore, that is a big, big hindrance to what we are trying to do. So it has reduced or limited the adoption of open sky frameworks. and preventing airlines from benefiting from increased competition and reduced costs. Ladies and gentlemen, our very restrictive policies on visas, hurdles is a mess, as you all know. Many African countries have their stringent visa policies, lengthy approval process, high fees, bottlenecks, and those disadvantages that discourage travel among Africans. So we have the initiative like the African Union passport and visa on arrival policy. These policies exist, but implementation has been pretty much inconsistent all around Africa. Look at our visa openness. Red shows you restrictions. Most African countries, and these are the 54 African states, most of them have a lot of red in them. Very few have green, and indeed it's only 4 states so far: Benin, Rwanda, Seychelles, Gambia. These are the ones that allow all Africans visa-free entry in and out of their states. Other states have varying levels of green, showing the restrictions or the people that they allow visa-free or visa on arrival. This chart is not encouraging. We need to change and make everything green. We also have infrastructure and operational challenges. Outdated technology in our airports, inadequate maintenance, and capacity constraints in many of our airports in Africa. It's only airports that we can name like Addis Ababa, which has increased its capacity to 20 million passengers with a new wing. And of course, we've all heard about the new 100 million passengers airport that is being built not far away from Addis Ababa. That will be there in the next 3 years. Kigali, Rwanda, Kigali, they have the brand new airport, Bugesera, with 20 million capacity that is coming up. Tanzania have completed theirs in Dar es Salaam airport. They've done a good job there. Entebbe in Uganda has also completed theirs. So there are these infrastructural upgrades that are happening around us, but many other African states, including Kenya, where I come from, we don't yet have movement in that area, and we're waiting for upgrades. We also have a lack of skilled aviation professionals, which further hampers the progress in these sectors. So we have operational challenges. But we do have a little bit of good news. We have projected growth in the intra-Africa market between 2025 and 2030. We project a compound annual growth rate of 4.7% for the intra-Africa market between 2025 and 2030. This follows a strong post-COVID recovery marked by 7% growth, contrasting with a more modest historical growth of 2.6% observed between 2017 and 2023. So 4% is encouraging, but however, to achieve that, we require implementation of SATA. So what are the proposed solutions to enhance intra-Africa travel? Very straightforward. We need to streamline our visa policies and enhance mobility. We need to implement the African Union's Free Movement of Persons protocol. We need to introduce visa-free travel or visa on arrival policies for all African citizens. But if we follow step 2, free movement of persons, we will not be talking about any visa requirement anywhere. But even if we insist on remaining with visa, let's do a digital visa processing system that is seamless and quick and takes seconds to do. The other thing we need to do is to implement SATA and liberalize air transport. One of the major restrictions to the implementation of SATA are the restrictive bilateral air service agreements that we have among states. Many of those BASAs, as we call them, restrict competition and protect the national airline or the designated carrier of a state. Therefore, the freedoms of air that are allowed among two states is very restricted. So you have 9 freedoms of the air, according to ICAO. And freedom 1, 2, 3, and 4 is what you currently know as you are allowed to fly from country A to country B and back to country A. That is a 3rd and 4th freedom. But a 5th freedom allows an airline to come from country A, fly to country B, drop and pick, and then from country B, fly to country C, drop and pick, and then come back to B and then back to A. That is a 5th freedom traffic right. The 5th freedom traffic rights are very restrictive in Africa, and they are very limiting. So what we propose is to introduce a multilateral air service agreement. So let's say we look at a regional economic community like SADC or like East African Community, the EAC. We have a multilateral air service agreement among the 8 EAC partner states, among the 9 or so SADC partner states. Have a multilateral air service agreement that allows 3rd, 4th, and 5th freedom traffic rights in and out of your states. This will generate more traffic among the states in the regional economic community and will go towards the full implementation of SATA. But of course, other things need to come into play, and that is that regional economic community needs to become domestic to each other and not international. That will reduce taxes, fees, and charges by even up to 90%. As travel agents, you're aware that maybe 60–70% of the ticket cost is government taxes, fees, and charges. What if we were to reduce that by 90%? The result would be reduced ticket prices and increased movement of persons among our states because our airfares will be affordable. This will assist in SATA. So one of the takeaways we have as I get towards the end of my presentation, 4.7% is anticipated growth rate. It could be more. With the implementation of SATAM, an additional 25 million passengers we can be expected. And we will get regional growth like you wouldn't believe. So, ladies and gentlemen, in Africa, we ask ourselves, do we embrace this opportunity of implementing SATA? Will we capitalize on this growth potential? Or will we allow non-African carriers to dominate the intra-Africa market? Ladies and gentlemen, that is a question that we have been asking and require an answer. And this question was asked since 36 years ago when the Yamoussoukro Declaration was made, 26 years ago when the Yamoussoukro decision was done in 1999, and since 2015 when the Single Africa Air Transport Market was created or SATAM by the African Union. To this date, we are still asking that question. So, ladies and gentlemen, are we going to take this opportunity? We need to unlock Africa's aviation potential, and this requires a coordinated effort from governments, regulatory bodies, and industry stakeholders like yourselves. The full implementation of SATAM and the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, or AREA, is instrumental in achieving seamless, affordable, and efficient air travel across the continent. This will drive economic growth and prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, if we implement SATAM, Africa will be prosperous and the people will be happy. So to conclude, the industry require airline cooperation, collaboration, new business models, innovation in operations. We need new financing and new investment. For governments, we should tackle the culture of non-prioritization of aviation, join SATAM and implement it, eliminate protectionism, reduce taxes, fees, and charges on aviation, and improve the aviation infrastructure and operating environment. The benefits will be long-term development goals for the continent to be achieved, greater affordability, convenience, and choice for consumers. There will be new route opportunities for African carriers, and we'll have socio-economic development like we won't believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Captain Kibe. You know, it is always such a pleasure listening to you, outline some of these challenges that we go through as a continent, but also to see that we are making some baby steps.
I don't even like iPad.
So one of the things, perhaps even as I usher in Aaron to come and provide his response, one of the questions I'm going to ask you when we now get into the sort of like a plenary discussion is for you to share with us, what was the biggest milestone, since we started this conversation, what was the biggest milestone for 2024 that is bringing us closer to the dream, of an open, freer Africa for Africans. Just keep that in mind, because we need to be able to track the small steps. As you've said, we've been on this for the last almost 40 years. And I think it's important for us as stakeholders to start tracking the little steps that we make so that we can hold our government account, but also we can challenge ourselves to push for more. So just remember that. What is for you the biggest milestone you've seen that we made towards that goal for 2024, and perhaps what will be coming up for 2025?
Thank you.
Aaron, that will come after Aaron's presentation, unless Aaron wants to speak to that. But over to you, Aaron. You've been in this space. You've had these things for many years. I don't know, what are your thoughts? Are we getting there? What kind of partnerships do we need to start building as stakeholders to ensure that this dream is actually realized by Africans for Africans? Over to you, Aaron.
Thank you very much, Nick, and good morning, colleagues. Salamu alaikum. Mambo vipi, habari gani? Dumelang, Moroi, greetings to everybody. So I think it's important for us to maybe to understand where we are as Africans. Can you see my screen?
Yes, just put it on full screen. We can see it, Aaron.
Okay, you can see it, right? Let me put it on slide. Okay, slideshow.
Great. Good.
That's fantastic. Okay, so what the Buddha once said, in a war of ego, the loser always wins. I want you to remember that, and when I get to the end of my presentation, in a war of ego, the loser always wins. What does Buddha mean by that? I'm really grateful that AESATA has seen it fitting to invite me to this webinar, the first one for this year. I feel really honored and privileged. Thank you very much, because we are talking about a topic that is close to my heart, and it has been close to my heart for the past 45 years that I've been in the aviation industry on the continent. And that topic is the power of partnerships. I have seen over the past 45 years the unimaginable power of partnerships take through seamless and honestly situations that seemed to be hopeless to become successes that the world over has gone to see and avere. So this is a very important and dear topic to me, and I'm grateful to AESATA for asking me to share my views on this. So in brief, the content I'm going to talk about is understanding the airline industry, the role of travel agents, supply partnerships and their importance, advantages of airline and travel agent collaborations, and then I'll end up with strategies for effective partnerships. And I'm going to try and whiz through some of these slides because I'm happy for the entire slide deck to be shared with the participants, and we can engage further offline if you so wish. But let's talk about the reality check here. Working together for our mutual benefit means three things. Number one, partnerships among airlines, travel agents, and suppliers. The second thing is, what does it do to us? It actually gives us operational efficiency, because when we work together, it allows us to improve our efficiencies. And most importantly, it helps us to drive profitability. And profitability, in my view, is something that we need to look at from where we are, because the topic is unlocking our potential. And it pains me when I hear this word potential being mentioned about Africa. It reminds me, for us being in the aviation industry, when we say this airport has got the longest runway in the world, and only one aircraft lands on that runway per day. That can't be potential, colleagues. That is misplaced potential. If you look at this projection from IATA as of October 2024, Africa is projected to reach 345 million passengers in 2043. I'm not too sure how many of us on the call are going to be around, but be that as it may, this means that we are more doubling the number of passengers that we have in 2023. By 2043, it will be 345 million passengers. And by 2043, according to United Nations, the world population would be reaching close to 10 billion. If you do the mathematics, you will see that we are going to contribute a significant number of passengers that are going to grow in Africa, but still, compared to 10 billion, we are still going to lag behind at probably, at the most, 4% of global traffic. That is not potential, colleagues. Now, let's go back to how each partner works in this situation. Understanding the airline industry is very simple. It's actually tantamount to doing a balancing act of many, many things. Some of the things that we're trying to balance are almost impossible to balance because we are operating in what we call a VUCA situation. It's rapid volatility. Every single day, volatility comes into play through anything that actually disturbs how we operate our airlines. And there are so many uncertainties from the whims of politicians to regulators to even elements that are beyond anybody's control, like weather. And then the complexity of doing business is just something that we need to unpack on a daily basis. And with all of that, then comes ambiguity. There are so many things that are ambiguous, we cannot even figure out what exactly is going on. So it brings us to just one realization, colleagues, that revenue or income is vanity. It's almost like putting lipstick on a pig. It will remain a pig. So if we say that we are celebrating an airline for generating so much revenue, actually it's vanity. It's an exercise in vanity. It doesn't take us anywhere except to make us feel good. Maybe profit gives you a sense of sanity because it actually shows you that you are probably covering most of your costs versus the amount of income that you're bringing in. But it just brings you some kind of sanity. Cash flow is reality, colleagues. For airlines, I can assure you, studies have been done over and over again. No airline has ever gone bankrupt because it doesn't have aircraft or it's not profitable. Airlines go bankrupt because they run out of cash. The moment you don't have cash as an airline, you are doomed, you're gone. So this is how the airline industry is actually supposed to be seen. It's a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment where cash flow is the reality. Now, how does this work for us as an industry? Number one, the airline industry provides three things. It provides passenger services, be they domestic, regional, or international, and it provides cargo services. And these cargo services bring a lot of competition industry into the industry, because there is also only freight forwarders that are only operating cargo flights. And yet most of our airlines, especially on the African continent, we are providing cargo as an added service. So when somebody actually doesn't do well in the passenger side of the business, they sort of get promoted in inverted commas to go and head cargo, because the cargo is seen as a stepchild. But in reality, actually cargo is where the bread and butter, the cash flow I was talking about earlier on, comes from. Look at Ethiopian Airlines. Throughout the pandemic, the reason why they were able to even grow their revenue base is because they pivoted and they were exceptionally doing well in terms of their cargo services. Again, that's actually just the reason why we now go and have industry competition that comes from pricing strategies, the service offerings that we have, and also customer satisfaction. Most of our airlines almost behave as if they are telling you, take it or leave it. Then to add to all this, the regulatory framework itself is rife with a lot of challenges. We encounter various regulatory hurdles, be it airline operating certificates, be it foreign operator permits, and so on and so forth. End of the day, what we need to guarantee as airlines is that safety is non-negotiable. Safety measures must be in place, and the service quality must be guaranteed. Otherwise, we're going to get a situation where we've got an aircraft that is empty and we don't have passengers coming on board. Now, the key players in the market and the dynamics that come into play as far as airline industry is concerned, the airlines themselves, the travel agents or original equipment manufacturers, the suppliers, the service providers such as ground handling agents, general sales agents, they all contribute to the aviation ecosystem, okay? But what are the market dynamics? There are market dynamics that affect everything else, and the main drivers are very simple: consumer demand, fluctuating fuel prices, they impact how the airlines do their pricing, technological advancements. I'll come back to technological advancements because it's also one of my pet peeves. And then we talk about geopolitics. Oh boy, are we into a situation where we are now feeling the heat and the pain of geopolitics, be it in the Middle East, be it in Europe, and be it in the Oval Office, somewhere in the White House. But geopolitics is what it is. What obstacles are encountered by airlines and by extension, the other players, the ground handling agents, the general sales agents, the travel agents, the same obstacles that airlines face, unfortunately, cannot be extricated from the others. Everybody has to be impacted. Volatile fuel prices, then I tell you, today is the 13th of March. I did a quick calculation yesterday. Since the 1st of January 2025 until the 12th of March, there have been almost 28% percentage point increases and decreases of jet fuel, 28 percentage points, which means even if you are a witch doctor, there's no way you're going to be able to anticipate what the fuel price is going to be today versus what it was yesterday. And you know very well that aviation fuel contributes up to 39% of an airline's costs. Now, when you are dealing with such fluctuating prices, your cash flow is hit at the most. The regulatory compliance that is required. I'm glad that my brother and my leader, my mentor, Captain Kibe, spoke about this when he was talking about the visa regime. Coupled with that visa regime comes compliance for us with regulations that we need to comply with when we fly to different countries. Again, going back to COVID, I've never seen such a plethora of requirements, be it PCR tests, be it whatever. And some people were actually taking advantage of us as airlines to the extent of saying, no, the middle seat must be empty. No, you can't serve hot food on the airline. And again, I go to the extent of saying we no longer need to harmonize, we need to standardize the regulatory framework. Now, what is the impact of all these things? The geopolitics, security, pandemics, and even Mother Nature comes in. I mean, who in their rightful mind would have ever thought that there would be floods that would lead to deaths in Botswana? Everybody says Botswana is a desert, it never rains. But this year they had so much rain and so much floods, and people actually died. So even with those things, they significantly impact our operations, and they require quick responses and strategies to be put in place. So what are the functions and services provided by travel agents? My my interaction with travel agents has been something that has been a joy to me, because way back in 1984, I was working for an airline here in South Africa, and they decided that, look, the Americans are talking of zero commission. The Europeans are also talking about zero commission. Is that gonna be a reality here on the African continent? And I was, for my sins, chosen as one of the team members that went to Europe and went to the USA to study how the zero commission was going to impact travel agencies, because a lot of people were saying, yeah, with the zero commission, travel agents are dead. Colleagues, I've been convinced since then. I am convinced up to today, and I'll be convinced even when I get buried. Travel agencies are going nowhere. Matter of fact, the travel agencies are actually going to grow and grow as they are still doing right now. They are a necessary service that is required by both airlines and by the passengers themselves. I know that some of my airline colleagues, even my own bosses, don't like it when I say this, but travel agencies are not going nowhere. They're actually going to be around for a long time. Some of the services they provide is itinerary planning. Some of the services include ticketing services, customer support, very important. Without customer support, travel agencies, airlines will not be able to fulfill the support that travel agencies provide. And most importantly, travel agencies provide representation. They stand in on behalf of their clients and on behalf of the airlines for the best outcomes, especially when things like dispute resolution is required. But airlines benefit from working with travel agents in 3 areas. So when airlines have got inventory and they want to do their promotions, they need to get a platform where they can say convincingly, here is our promotional offer. Travel agencies actually, they can do the co-creation of the promotional offers. In terms of market reach, travel agents actually go to the nooks and crannies of any market where airlines are not in most possible ways, and they cannot go to that area and be able to be visible. Travel agencies do that. They enhance market reach. And travel agencies actually are the best people to provide a tailored service, starting from coming to the client's requirements, the client's needs. The travel agent knows that. No online travel agency facility or airline direct facility can provide this service that the travel agencies actually provide. So I am convinced, I am actually 100% convinced and committed to making sure that as airlines, we actually get closer and continue to work closely in collaboration with travel agencies. We are one and the same. Remember what I said earlier on, in a war of ego, the loser always wins. There is no way that we can say airlines are trying to elbow travel agencies out of the way because airlines can do it. It's an ego thing as far as I'm concerned. But that's a discussion for another platform. So the evolution of travel agencies up to this date, where we call it the digital age, has been something that has been phenomenal. Remember, from having to pick up the phone and call the airline because the airline had a central reservation system, or some airlines were even low in adapting that technology. They actually wanted you to make a phone call, and they had manual cards for them to actually book your passenger, or even cancel your passenger. Now we are in the online booking platforms. This is amazing. And also, because of that, there's been changes in the consumer behavior, and travel agencies are the ones that keep abreast, even ahead of what the consumer behavior is. And they are the ones that enable the adaptation of competitiveness amongst themselves as travel agencies, and also other modes of transport, as well as other convenience sectors. Everything else actually coalesces and comes to a travel agency. And that's where, in my view, the boot hits the tar, and you get travel agencies doing what they do best. They are the ones that are able to actually represent travel agencies, the airlines. Now, colleagues, supply partnerships and their importance reminds me of what this young man once said. Martin Luther King said, we must learn to live together as sisters and brothers or perish together as fools. I don't want to die. I don't want to die as a fool. I want to die as somebody who is close to his brothers and sisters. And my brothers and sisters are in the airline industry, are in the travel agency industry, and they are in the supply industry. So we all need to learn to live together. If we just think that we are going to elbow each other out of the way, that is ego. And I can tell you now, the one who wins is the loser. Now, how are we going to build these bridges? Because the topic of our discussion is building bridges. I think from an airline point of view, even as much as our airline operations provide inventory, ensuring supply to travel agencies who then service the passengers, that to me is a key area where travel agencies must be allowed to have access to this inventory for as long as long as possible and in unlimited way. Now, I've seen the encroachment of NDCs and all these kind of things. It's good technology and it works for other airlines and so forth. But at the end of the day, airlines must provide their inventory to travel agents to enable the travel agents to service their passengers. On the part of travel agencies, they are the ones that professionally source and contract with the end users, who are also known as passengers, in order to complete the cycle. Now, if the cycle is truncated because airlines feel that through NDC they can go directly to the passengers, there are some success stories where airlines have been able to do that. But I can tell you, colleagues, the cycle becomes actually not complete, it's truncated. And when a situation is truncated, you are actually taking out a critical role in cost management and logistical support that comes from the travel agents sector. Now, when you talk about the suppliers and the service companies, ground handling agencies, the general sales agents, and so on and so forth, they provide the foundation of the industry. It's almost a bedrock because that is what enables the transactions across the entire sector. So we've got GDSs, global distribution systems, providing us the facility to be able to do the things that we need to do. Then we also have our facilitators like your Honeya's, your Hit and so forth, being able to come in and represent airlines where they are not able to be there on their own. So this is a critical role that our colleagues, for example, from Honeya are doing as a virtual airline. For me, this is actually where we actually begin to see how important it is to build these bridges that enable us to do the things that we need to do on behalf of our customers. Now, what are the key benefits of supplier partnerships? First and foremost, the service levels need to be seen as one of the critical success factors, because partnerships significantly enhance these service levels, ensuring customer satisfaction, operational efficiency, and sustainable businesses. Sustainable business is also about cost savings. When you have substantive cost savings and through the shared services that we have, we are then going to be able to pass on that cost reduction to our customers, thereby stimulating travel and enhancing intra-Africa travel. Captain Kibe did mention very correctly that the African airfares, especially intra-African airfares, are amongst the highest in the world. I can give you an example. A 45-minute flight from Lagos to Accra will set you back almost $600 US. Whereas a 1-hour flight from London, let's say Luton to Nuremberg, which is almost 45 minutes to an hour, will cost you 25 euro. When you unpack it and see what the difference is, it's actually about just being able to collaborate and come up with substantial cost savings through shared services. And then we need to also make sure that we understand that when we have supply partnerships across the entire sector, we have enhanced innovation. Innovation is critical, colleagues. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've traveled across the width and breadth of our beautiful continent to each and every one of the 55 countries without fail. And I can tell you the number of times I've been asked to fill in a form, or even nowadays they tell me, put your 4 fingers, your right hand, put your thumb, 4 fingers, left hand, put your thumb, you're good to go. They stamp my passport. Then I ask my sister, what actually do you do with these fingerprints? And this beautiful lady with this amazing smile looks at me and he says, actually, this system is not working at the moment. And I wonder, So why are you doing this? But we need to enhance innovation and make sure that we enable our travel agents and airlines and suppliers to adopt and adapt new technologies so that we improve the service that we are giving to everybody at a cost-efficient level. The competitive advantage of being together as partners, colleagues, is that effective partnerships allow airlines, travel agencies, and suppliers to remain competitive. Because if any one of us in this chain is not competitive, it impacts the others, and we end up with a lopsided service offering that doesn't have anything to do with leveraging new ideas and efficiencies, and we are the losers at the end of the day. Okay, so there are quite a number of case studies that I wanted to share with you. Just in brief, there are collaborative best practices that have seen successful collaborations that follow best practices. We have also got operational efficiency gains. Now, to me, this is very important, colleagues, because when we talk about collaborations between airlines, you look at the very basic collaboration, which is interline agreement, where an airline says, you can sell my airline in your own system, in your own environment, and I'll give you an airfare. And this is the airfare that we agree. You can put a markup if you want, or you can sell it at cost. It's entirely up to you. But we are going to be able to sell our two networks together. That's the basic understanding of airline collaboration. It goes to the highest level where you can actually have code share agreement, which means your flight number and designation is actually on my flight, on my schedule, in an area where you would have never, ever thought that you would be represented. I'll give you an example. When South African Airways and Egypt Air and Ethiopian Airlines became Star Alliance partners, there were a lot of questions asked. Why are these guys joining a global branded alliance? Is going to be actually the disadvantage. Actually, the truth was the reverse. South African Airways was going to be able to be represented by United Airlines in a place called Des Moines. I don't know how many of you even know that there's a city called Des Moines in the USA. Des Moines is a small little resort, a remote place with 250,000 people. South African Airways is actually seen on that board as an airline flying from Des Moines to Washington, which is Washington Dallas Airport, and from Dallas to Accra, from Accra to Johannesburg. Suddenly, you see the advantage. So I think the collaboration between airlines is very important, because then suddenly even the suppliers themselves, including travel agencies, can also see significant improvements, not only in their operation of efficiency, but in their cost of distribution and streamlining processes, because the airlines are collaborating. The same thing happens with travel agencies. When you guys go and join global brands with their advantages and disadvantages, which you know better than I do, I think it's important just for us to understand that even when you enhance customer satisfaction, the successful partnerships are the ones that actually result in improved customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction is one of the pivot points for us on the African continent. In as much as we are saying we need intra-Africa connectivity, if we do not enhance customer satisfaction, we are actually doing ourselves a disfavor, because we're spending a lot of money stimulating traffic. When the customer comes to us, either to the travel agent's office or to the airline office or to the airport, and they are not satisfied with the service that we deliver, the chances of them coming back are also very limited. Unfortunately, we have competition that is coming from other areas that are not African, that are not benefiting us as Africans, and we need to make sure that we safeguard ourselves. The second element that results from bridging the relationships is an enhanced customer experience. I spoke earlier on about collaboration between airlines and agents, and I gave an example of Honey Air being a virtual airline that represents airlines where they are not able to be there physically, but end of the day, all it does is it is ensuring better service delivery by everybody across the value chain. And then the personalized customer service. For me, I need to spend 1 or 2 minutes on this. Colleagues, there is nobody who can tell you that a travel agency is going to die if they've not experienced the excellent customer service that comes from a travel agency. Because look at a travel agent says to you as a customer, listen, I can go to the embassy and represent you to submit your visa application. I am the one who can actually go to the airline and appeal on your behalf that the cancellation fee be waived and so forth. So travel agencies, just for those two examples, they personalize the service to the extent that they even, some of them, to their own detriment, actually end up extending credit to their customers, hoping that the customer will pay. Unfortunately, when the customer doesn't pay, the travel agent suffers from a cash flow point of view. But still, it's part of their process of giving personalized service. And the customers support throughout the journey. There is no way anyone can actually surpass what a travel agent can do, because a travel agent gives you that support throughout the journey, 24/7. Doesn't matter what the time zone, the time differences are. They are able to support their customer as they go along their journey. From an improved operational efficiency point of view for airlines, I spoke about this earlier on, cost reduction is important, and optimize the resource allocation. Now, this is where we also have a challenge with ourselves on the continent, where we actually try and say, if you're a travel agent, you're just a travel agent. If you're an airline, you're just an airline. If you are a service provider, you're just a service provider. I think the time has come and passed for us now to start saying the same resources that we have can actually be allocated across the value chain so that we maximize the number of people and the number of transactions that are continuous and in a continuum as seamless services that are provided to our customers. Now, when we increase our revenue and profitability, here's what we do, colleagues. We need to make sure that that graph you see there keeps on an upward trajectory. If it is an upward trajectory for the airline, it must be an upward trajectory for the travel agent. It must be an upward trajectory for the supplier as well. So we need to drive sales. And somebody said to me the other day, the moment you stop selling, it means you have stopped working. It's just like networking. The moment you stop networking, it means you've stopped working. Both, in fact, all three elements, travel agents, airlines, and suppliers, we have to have collaborative efforts to sell, especially between us as airlines and travel agents. Because when we stop selling, we stopped working. And we also need to say, while we drive sales, we must enhance customer loyalty, because customer loyalty is key. Because we don't want to end up with a situation where we have one act transactions and the customer goes to the next person. It's a cost burden for everybody to start dealing with new clients over and over again, whereas we can actually enhance each other's customer loyalty. And when we boost profitability, the partnership between airlines, travel agents, and suppliers can lead to increased profitability, like I said earlier on, when we share services and we share resources, so that our goals become mutual. Now, what is required for us to build these partnerships? I call it the A-team mentality. And it's not an A-team because my name starts with double A. Actually, it's an A-team because there are 4 A's here. The first one is that we have to have agreements amongst ourselves. What are we agreeing to do? What are we agreeing to achieve? Once we have these agreements, we analyze our situations and say, okay, now that we've got these agreements, what do we need to do to adjust to our business processes? So the second A is about adjustments, adjust our business processes, policies, and procedures to be able to make sure that we all achieve what we have agreed. Now that we have made these adjustments, how do we align ourselves to each other and our processes and to our customer requirements so that we can now say everything is falling into place and we are going to be able to achieve what we have agreed? And the last one, which is most important for me, is accountability. Any A team has to have accountability. If you look at my favorite sport, you won't be paid anything for guessing. Favorite sport for me, like many Africans, is football. If you are going to take a penalty kick, you have to be accountable. If you are going to be the goalkeeper, you're going to be accountable for your actions. So in this 4A team kind of thing, accountability is important, and we must make sure we continuously revise each other's performance, and we review how we are performing so that we can continuously achieve what we have agreed to do. So the importance of everything that I've mentioned with these 4 A's is all about trust. How do we build trust? Importance of trust is a foundation for successful partnerships. Clear communication, colleagues. We have to have open and transparent communication to strengthen our relationships. We must share our objectives. I'm not saying share your business plans, but share our objectives, because that is where we get the agreements. And once we share those agreements, we must align on common goals so that we have this collaboration that we need to achieve, and we end up with accountability again. The resulting relationships must ensure accountability for all partners, so that we are dealing with mutual objectives that need to be achieved. Now, how do we utilize technology for data sharing in order for us to have this trust? The enhanced collaboration comes by ensuring that we utilize technology to boost collaboration regarding facilitating better communication and teamwork across different platforms. So if you are a travel agent, the platform that you are using must be able to talk to the airline platform, must be able to talk to the supplier platform, and your supplier platform can even be the immigration officer. It can be the customs officer if you are a cargo agent. So there's a lot of collaboration that can happen once we start sharing data. And then because we have almost up to date, up to the minute data, we are going to be able to make informed decisions. And when we make informed decisions, we are going to be able to improve our customer service that we deliver. And that is where we leverage technology at the most, because then the customer doesn't have to come to our office to make a payment. They can make an online payment. There are a lot of other facilities that can actually be enhanced just by making sure that we embrace technology. So with all this that I've said, how do we then go forward in terms of improving feedback mechanisms? Because when we don't give each other feedback, we are almost operating in the dark. I always give an analogy, because when I was young, I was very shy, and I'm still shy. So whenever I saw a beautiful girl, I would imagine how I'm going to approach her. And my elder brother said to me, Aaron, stop this nonsense. It's like you have seen a beautiful girl in the dark and you're winking at her. You know what you're doing, but she's got no clue what you're doing. So here is the importance of feedback. And for me, that's the analogy I use. The importance of feedback. The mechanisms are crucial for assessing performance and understanding our strengths and weaknesses. Because in a partnership, there are strengths and weaknesses that we need to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And also, we need to identify the improvement areas. There are always improvement areas. And I always say to my team, the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. The moment you start saying you have achieved cum laude, you can't improve anymore, the only time that happens is when you're dead and buried. As long as you're alive and as long as you're in business, there is always improvement, and you must always strive to understand what those improvement areas are. And most importantly, colleagues, we have to have that view and focus that says legitimately we must have sustainable partnerships that enable us to implement our continuous improvement and lead to more sustainable partnerships, in order for us to make sure that these needs and challenges that keep coming at us end up being part of what we call the bottom line that sustains our business. Asante sana. Thank you very much for the time that you've given me. I really appreciate it, and I'm available for any chance, any chat that comes through. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Aaron. I think what you've done is given some very practical steps that actually brings us closer, to building this collaboration. And I like the fact that you're talking about, unlocking Africa's potential look like. And I also struggle a lot, when we keep on talking about Africa, and Africa is seen as this continent that is full of potential, and somebody needs to unlock it. And the question is, who is this that we are waiting to come and unlock this potential? And I think that's why at AESATA we decided we're going to have a conversation across the continent, across the value chain of travel, so that we take the leads in unlocking this potential. And I think you've spoken in breadth around a couple of things, and I don't want to repeat those, but I think the important one for me is, how do we build trust? Because a lot of things that are holding us back as a continent is a mistrust amongst ourselves, amongst our government, that allow us not to move forward because we just don't, trust what the other person will do. Now, I wanted to open this up to a few, and I can maybe give about 10 or so minutes, just quickly in terms of the interventions, if anyone wants to throw in. Remember, what we are looking at is how do we unlock Africa's potential, and how do we enable a seamless intra-Africa travel. And I think Aaron spoken about some innovative ways, and also how to be able to build some of these collaboration. But as we wait for this, I know I had asked a question to Captain Gilbert Kibe. You can take that opportunity to respond to it, but also to make any comment from what Aaron has said.
Thank you very much. Aaron, thank you very much for that very, very comprehensive and interesting presentation. And you've given what the challenges are and what the solutions are as well. Nick, you asked me a question. What was the biggest milestone in 2024 that I have noted towards implementation of SATAM? I think for me, the biggest thing that has happened is the announcement by the Kenya government that there will be no more requirement for visas for Africans. And I understand that is what it was announced. It has been declared. I would like to find out from you, the travel agents from Kenya, is this true? Any African able to walk into Kenya visa-free? And that's just a quick question. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it is amidst lots of challenges. I think even as we speak now, the system is down.
Okay.
But I've seen efforts towards that. We still have a few challenges, particularly, government directives sometimes take longer to be able to implement. But right away, I think there has been, I think, from the beginning of the year, effort, towards opening up. But you've been in government, sometimes government has very good intentions, but there are people at the end of the line that sometimes you feel like they are not aligned. So
Correct.
You don't know whether there is sabotage or whether indeed the system is down because it's overwhelmed. But yes, we've seen the efforts, towards that, and the government officials, we are talking to them, they are determined to be able to allow it. But let me say this, and I think Aaron has mentioned the importance of data and statistics. I will tell you one of the things that moved the Kenya government was the last visa index report that was reduced, that actually significantly demonstrated and showed how Kenya had dropped down, the visa access index, and that was a proof that government required to be able to follow through that particular requirement for the ETA. Aaron, I see your hand is up. Do you want to make a comment before we open up to the rest?
Yes, Nick, thank you very much. I just to assist Captain to answer that question, what has been significant achievement for SATAM? Number one, Kenya announced the visa-free, and immediately followed by Ghana. Ghana also announced visa-free. But for me, from an airline perspective, it was the coming together of the ECOWAS ministers of transport, based on the pressure that we had put through to all the African countries through the SATAM pilot implementation program, where we have my dear brother Captain Kibe as our ambassador, and we had put a lot of pressure through various channels, and I can even tell you through even diplomatic interventions, where we are meeting with very high level government officials and saying to them, number one, you are not providing the aviation industry the enabling environment that is required in order for us to stimulate traffic. And when we were asked by the ECOWAS colleagues to say, how do we stimulate traffic in ECOWAS region? We said, number one, you have the highest costs in terms of taxes, fees, and charges. Mm-hmm. And we actually assisted AFCA to put together a package that was sent through to all the governments in ECOWAS, showing them the comparative taxes, fees, and charges And I think they had no option but to come together. And they came together in December and agreed that they are going to significantly reduce taxes, fees, and charges by up to 25%. And again, data, Nick, very important. The past 2 weeks, I've been trying to follow up with my colleagues in the ECOWAS region, and the numbers that are coming are actually very encouraging. I've seen in Togo, for example, I've seen in Ghana, and I've seen results that came through 2 days ago from Gambia. A reduction that has actually been sent through and been approved by government to reduce taxes, fees, and charges by up to 18%. And I think for me, because of that, Nick, we are now seeing even our colleagues here in the SADC region also emulating what has happened in ECOWAS. So I think for me, that is a significant achievement through SATAM. And you can see the pull that SATAM is now having. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is also coming on board and making sure that the trade in services, tariffs, and so forth that have been already agreed to are going to be implemented. I think there's much more positive that is coming through from SATAM implementation that we can all be proud of as Africans, and we need to continue in that line. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
let me, Nick,
Yeah.
allow me to
Yeah.
add something, please.
Go ahead.
I thank Aaron for mentioning the ECOWAS ministers. But you know, the thing is, they've agreed that they're going to implement SATAM, reduce taxes, fees, and charges by up to 25%, but beginning in 2026. Now, that is next year. Why don't we become like Trump and decide that we make a decision and we start it today, not next week or next year? That is what I think what I would like to see. But also very importantly, can I remind us all that we have solutions? The Africa Union has created solutions for all our challenges. Let me take you back to the slide of last year. Just give me a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Agenda 2016, 2063 years.
Okay, so you have it inside?
Yes, just go perhaps on
Okay.
the presentation mode. Yeah, it's on the screen.
Okay, so Agenda 2063, we have 16 flagship projects, of which the top 3 most important is Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, the Single Africa Air Transport Market, and free movement of persons, or in the African passport. So in some instances, we have seen some improvements in the free movement of persons. We have seen some small implementation of AFCFTA, but we've not yet seen implementation of SATAM. But you know, we need to remind ourselves, and I showed this slide the last time, what is the true size of the African continent? It is 30.4 million square kilometers. The whole of the United States, including Alaska, will fit in Africa. China, India, and Europe, all combined, will fit inside Africa. And there'll still be some room to spare. But what does this mean? When we look at the true size of Africa, the only movement that we can do of people and goods is by air. Africa air transport market. When we make Africa domestic to itself, all taxes, fees, and charges will come down, free movement of persons will be there, and goods and services. So the African Union has already given us a solution. The only thing we have to do is to implement it. Why do we not implement it yet? We know it's there. There's a lack of political will, as I mentioned in the beginning, protectionism of state carriers and people like that, and generally a negative attitude towards the implementation of SATAM. I strongly believe that if we are able, through the African Union, because it is their project, there's new African Union Commission, there's a new chairman. If that chairman can go and arrange meetings for we, Africa Civil Aviation Commission, who are the implementing or executing agencies of SATA, together with the SATA ambassadors like myself, if we could go to a state, meet a president, the vice president, head of state, all the ministers, all the PSs, all the directors, all the industry players, including travel agents, tourists, tour operators, airlines, airports, the entire scope, put everybody in one room, give us 1 hour. We will give you a presentation on the implementation and the benefits of implementing SATA. When we do that and we get a presidential directive that we can implement SATA from the 1st of April, and we see that in many states around Africa, then implementation will begin. The traffic quantum will grow like you would not believe. If you reduce your taxes by 90% and ticket prices come down from that $600 for the 50-minute flight like I have to pay to go from Nairobi to Entebbe, if that comes down to $200 with the legacy carrier like Kenya Airways or Uganda Airlines, or with the low-cost carrier like Jumbo Jet, I can get a ticket for $100. Can you imagine the quantum leap in movement of persons and even trade among our neighbors? And then we spread that around Africa. 30 million square kilometers, we will become the biggest, largest market in the whole world. And it will become big because we'll be trading with each other. Majority of Africa will trade with each other. 80% will be Africa trade. 20% will be trade between Africa and outside of the continent. So we have a low-hanging fruit here, and it is possible to implement. So I support Aaron. And you travel agents, you have a key role to play. You are going nowhere except assisting us to implement SATA. Thank you.
Absolutely, Captain. And I think we speak about accountability. For us, I think from an AESATA perspective, we building a coalition that will allow us to be able to ensure that we hold our policymaker, our government accountable. And the big question remains, who will bail the cat? I wanted to quickly see if there's anybody that can be able to chime in, any comment from the floor, so that we get to hear the voices of the people. If you are ready, if you raise your hand, I will be able to give you the mic so that you can make a contribution. Okay, Letole, you will get the presentation. I want to hear a voice from the floor so that before we wind up, doesn't look like it's just a dialogue. But I want to hear a voice from the floor. I see colleagues from airlines. I see colleagues from IATA. I see colleagues from travel agencies. I just want to hear a voice from the floor in terms of how do we really work towards this goal. Banda from Malawi, maybe I'll just pick a few people that I know that can be able to add their voice so that it's just not us. Banda, if you can hear me, Ken Banda, I know you're a veteran travel agent in this space, worked around many colleagues across the continent. What are you hearing our speaker say this morning? If you can be unmuted, yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Nick, good morning, and good morning, everyone who is participating this morning. This has been a very great presentation from our brother Aaron. This reminded me of his presentation in Kigali a few months back. Everything that he has said indeed is very, very true, and if only airlines and us as their sales agents have an understanding, I think the industry would have been taken far from here. And again, most of our governments are so protective, despite several conventions that have been made and some governments have signed for those conventions, But when it comes to implementing, it's quite something else. I think this is where I fail to understand why we are not making any breakthroughs, and I'm not sure what kind of system we need to implement, except to keep on knocking on the doors of the policyholders to ensure that whatever they signed for is implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken, for your voice. I want to ask, I can see Barry Kashambo, who has his hand up. And then I know a friend of mine who is very passionate about this, Candy Kasonkoma from Hanea. Candy, after that, I'll come to you, so I need to hear your voice. Barry, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Sambula. I'm also your friend, by the way. I just wanted to add to a question to the colleagues. Two questions. One is about the African Continental Free Trade, about the AU flagship projects. When we talk about visa-free, we are saying there should be no conditions whatsoever on issuance of visa-free entry. But now with the entries being implemented with something more added called, I don't know, something, entry authorization with a fee, it sort of dilutes it. So maybe they could comment. The second one is about taxes. The issue of taxes in Africa being so high is what is making the tickets very, very high. We need to see, my question to the panelists is, how do we really make sure that we accelerate the issue of removal of taxes or reduction so that we can have low ticket costs on the continent? Thank you.
Thank you, my friend Barry. Before I hand over to the speakers, I wanted to hear another voice. Is that Thompson? Can I hear another voice from the floor before we hand over to the speakers? Go ahead, Dawson, if you are making a comment. If not, then I will request that we mute you. Okay, you're muted. Any comment? Last comment from the floor? Just somebody that wants to make a contribution before we hand this over. Hamida, I can see you as well from Zambia. I'm so sure you have a comment to make about this intra-Africa travel. You're very passionate about it. How do we connect Africa more? What can we do as travel agents towards this, Hamida?
Hi, Nick. Thank you for putting me on the spot. I'll take this opportunity to just say good morning to everybody, and what an insightful and powerful presentation. We've heard from two people that I totally admire and love their passion for Africa. So I think mine is just a comment. I love how Aaron has illustrated the importance of the two powerful entities that we have on the continent, just actually not continent, but globally, but now we'll zone it into the continent, which is the airlines on one side and the travel agencies on the other side. As Aaron has said, I've always said it. I think if there are any more agencies online, they do know how I am extremely passionate about everything they do and that they're not going anywhere. SATM is extremely important. I will not go into the details there, and it is very essential that each one of us on this call plays a role. I've always heard conversations where people are always saying, but it's not up to me, it's up to the governments to make the right decisions. But at the end of the day, each one of us here has got to also do what we can, because we are the ones who are in charge of our continent. I say that because it is us who showcases our continent. It is us who showcases who we are. And we can only do that if we work hand in hand to get SATM going. And the best way to do it is to speak about it, is to verbalize. We've got issues on visa on visa elements. I mean, it's ridiculous for an African to be told to wait 10 days to get a visa. But if we can work hand in hand with Dr. Kibe, who is running one end of Africa to get SATAM going, for us, all of us, we will get more people traveling and making Africa the continent that is. So for me, I think this was brilliant. I appreciate everybody's contributions. And again, thank you to Aaron and Captain for always just showcasing why Africa is important and why each one of us is in this industry, and we make our contributions are so important. No one's contribution is irrelevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kendi. Hamida, maybe your last comment.
Hi, Nick. Hi, everyone. I think this initiative is really fantastic for Africa, and we're all very keen to get things getting better, to move ourselves from a third world to a second world through air travel. That's a very important criteria to upgrade our countries, our air systems, all that. But I think most important is to start at grassroots level, which is our local governments. You know, Nick, when you came down with Doctor, you met the minister, the important thing is to have the governments on our side in order to be able to facilitate and make things happen. So I think each association, each travel agency association should dialogue and have a good relationship with the governments in order to get things going. Once we have the governments listening to us, things will happen. That's it. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank you very much. So I think we will, so that we can wind up this, but I wanted just to give my chairman from Kenya, Dr. Joseph Kithitu, if you have a comment to make, and then I'll hand that over to our speakers to respond and wrap this up. Dr. Kithitu, if you are online.
Thank you, Nick, and morning, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for the two presenters. Indeed, very insightful presentation. I think we are all players in the industry, but several times I've attended such engagements, and we speak from one corner of the defeated. We need to shift this position, exactly in line of what Amida has mentioned of Zambia. I attended an IATA forum and was discussing about airports, discussing things about SATAM, but there was only one minister from Nigeria of transport. So you see, the things we are discussing requires a lot of government policies, requires a lot of, actually, it's all around the ministers of transport and the like. We need to shift this engagement now to the doorstep of the people responsible. So as associations, and this is key for AESATA, it's quite good that now we are getting a value proposition for being members of AESATA. We can speak because we share common problems, we share common issues. Now we write papers to our ministers, we write our papers to the government and articulate these issues on a consistent basis so that we start getting results for these things. Now we know where it pains. Sometimes we sit around, I was thinking about these taxes. If the taxes were to come down by 60, 70% on airfares, what will happen to the government revenues? First, come down. And one thing the government tells us whenever we engage them is we are okay, we are ready to reduce it, but show us where to get the substitute revenue. So we think we need to broadly speak around it, see that our government revenues in the African continent, they are still looking for revenues to do their internal things. They have seen air transport as one of the easiest way to collect dollars and revenue. But we need to work with them and show them the big economies of scale, that one ticket can have a multiplier effect. If that person steps into your country on a cheaper fare, you will spend more on hotels, you will spend more on economy and through purchasing, you will get more money through other local systems of taxation. So we need to create a mindset shift change and speak to the authorities and start showing them. We have read here, and I think Dr. Kibe, right, you've seen, we have tried to tell the government, try to open the skies, try to allow more international airlines to fly into the country, dump the people here. Let's manage those numbers when they're here. So let's continue pushing that. AESATA is the body that now should also articulate papers. Nick, you mentioned the IATA members here. I don't know how they got here, but it's very important that AESATA picks the issues the industry feels. We write to IATA. We've seen some issues being asked around our trade that are not aligned. So that the AESATA region operates on an environment that airlines want to operate, an environment that is free, fair, and leveled, so that we can grow this business. You know, look, our Zambia friends there, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Africa, everyone is trading in a different environment. Yet we're talking about SATAM for the airlines. The travel trade is still on a very unleveled field, taxes on VATs, on tickets, on services. So really, let's now say, okay, as a business operators, we might not fight strong. With association on our side, now bring a value. We make papers, we put cases, we get experts, professional consultants, our Dr. Kibes here and the like, and our friend on the other side. We write papers, they see the sense, and now we start ticking the boxes. So really, it's a steps in the right direction. We don't stop, but we lift our heads up and we face it. Thank you, Link and the team.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kithitu, for those comments. I think what Aaron talked about, evidence-based data, data-driven decisions. So I'll now hand over to, let me start with Captain Kibe, maybe just your closing remarks, if you're able to respond to what you've heard, and then provide your closing remarks. Then I come over to you, Aaron, to wind up.
Thank you very much. So Barry asked two questions. This free movement of persons, the visa regime, has also brought some challenges and restrictions. So whereas we're trying to bring in a visa-free situation in Africa, we still have the hurdle of the implementation of the free movement of person protocol as per African Union. Now, what the free movement of person protocol says is that any African can come, live and work in any African country of his or her choice at any time without requirement for a work permit or whatever. You become an African citizen. Now, the biggest hindrance is when you tell African states that a Nigerian can come and work in Kenya without a work permit. It presents a big problem. Or a Zambian can go and work in South Africa without restrictions. So that is the biggest hurdle, Africans trying to accept that other Africans can come and freely work in their countries. But in Europe, it works beautifully. That is what happened. They did a free movement of person. Anybody could settle anywhere in Europe. And look at the results today. Nothing negative has ever happened because of free movement of persons. So we need to convince the governments that there's nothing wrong with it. Otherwise, I think they have no issue with having a visa-free status, but they are concerned also on the loss of revenue, a perceived loss of revenue. Which brings us to the second thing that Barry said about the taxes, fees, and charges. The biggest hurdle is to convince a finance minister in Africa that if you reduce your taxes, fees, and charges, you will increase your revenue. Today, they believe that when you reduce taxes, you reduce revenue, but that is not true. And the example is this. If in a particular city pair from one country to another, at today's $600 ticket price, to do a 50-minute flight, it costs $600. But if you brought that price down to $200, and the $600 was giving you 1,000 people per month, but if you have $200 tickets, it becomes 10,000 people per month. What difference will that make? I put it to the finance minister that it will make such a huge difference that even that quantum increase from 1,000 to 10,000, and let's say the tax becomes $10 instead of $500 from what it used to be, you're going to get a reduction in the tax revenue that you get for that area, but the socioeconomic benefit you get from 10,000 people will be far much greater revenue for your country. So each traveler will spend about $100 a day, accommodation and meals and things like that. So if you move from 1,000 to 10,000, imagine the impact on your economy. So it's not just that direct tax. But however, when that 10,000 becomes 100,000, then even that $10 that you're making in that aviation fees will become far much more than you are making today. My closing remarks is as follows. Let us arrange country by country meetings with all the leadership in one room, as I described earlier, and show them the benefits of SATA. And they will come and declare that from such and such a day, we will implement SATA. I believe it will happen. And it has succeeded elsewhere. It has succeeded in Europe. That is how you get your 25 euro tickets or 50 euro tickets, because they decided to do that. Everywhere in Europe became domestic to each other. All the taxes, fees, and charges were reduced tremendously. And look at the impact that has had today. It's unbelievable. We can do that in Africa, because remember, in Africa, we're much bigger than Europe. We're much bigger than Europe, the United States, India, China, all combined. So what if we had affordable transport among Africans within Africa? The result will be unbelievable. We will have the world's greatest economy. Africa will be prosperous and the people will be happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain. Over to you, Aaron, your closing remarks and any response to what you heard.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you very much to Barry and all the commentators. I think for me, Barry, as far as visa regime is concerned, I understand that this has always been a bone of contention. Countries talk about protecting their sovereignty and so on and so forth. I think that's nonsense. End of the day, I always tell whoever wants to listen to me when I go to different countries that the same Africans that you don't want to come to your country are already there. So what are you trying to protect? What you are doing is actually stopping the bona fide travel who actually wants to travel genuinely, because they are now even applying for the visa, showing you that they want to come to your country. And they are the ones that you are giving a problem to. The ones that sneaked in through porous borders and all kinds of things, they're already there. So stop telling us this. So for me, Nick, I'm very robust when it comes to this. I meet government officials and I tell them to their face that, listen, you are living in 1963. We are in 2025. You need to change your mentality so that you can actually come up with the situation that we are living in right now. And second thing, Nick, is I think talking to the data issue, I hear countries, tourism authorities saying, yeah, we need to go and spend our money, for example, in Europe and in the USA, because we are seeing an increase in arrivals from those countries. And I tell them, guys, come on, dig down a little bit, one level of the data that you have. You will see that most of the Europeans that you're thinking are coming to your country, or Americans that are coming to your country, are actually Africans that are in the diaspora that have naturalized, and now they're traveling with the adopted passports of where they are. Account for that, and you will see that actually the opportunity that you have is here on the African continent. So, Barry, it comes back to the visa issue, because those Europeans or American Africans that are now coming back to Africa will not come and only stay in Kenya for their holiday. They have met friends with fellow Africans that are from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from Nigeria, and they want to visit each other. So we all of us in this platform, we need to compile this data. It doesn't matter if we have got 10 customers that are in the diaspora that are traveling on foreign passports. That is enough data for us to coordinate it through Nick's office and say to the Kenyan government, this is the data that we have. Look at this opportunity and make sure that you stream it. I saw a post from Margaret talking about South Africa now offering visa-free travel to Kenyans, and Kenyans whiz through the visa-free line. And when South Africans come to Kenya, I saw that post, Margaret, and actually these are the things that make me upset, because we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot. But we must not continue to focus on the negatives. There are positives that are happening. So, Nick, we compile the data, no matter how small the data sample is, and share it with authorities. And number two, let's look at success stories. Look at Seychelles, look at Rwanda, Look at Ghana. Look at even Kenya now saying Africans can travel visa-free. Let's compile the data for the first quarter of 2025 and say, here is what outcomes are. The other time, Barry spoke about taxes, fees, and charges. Colleagues, I'm the first to admit to you that even us as airlines were guilty. When we do the final analysis, we see that airlines actually collect some taxes, which they don't remit to government, and they keep it, and they hide behind, no, these are government taxes. No, we are also guilty. So we want you as travel agents to start compiling those cases where you see that there's a tax that is being levied by a government authority and by an airline, and compare and see where we can actually come together and say, reduce this tax. So it's not something that we should only be pointing fingers at somebody else. Let's look internally ourselves. You as travel agents have got your service charges. Is $25 equitable? I don't know. But we need to actually do the analysis ourselves and come up with a solution. My parting shot, colleagues, is when we put our minds together, we are formidable. We are a formidable continent. We must never, ever allow ourselves to be spoken to about and of as being a negative continent. We are not. We are a positive continent. We have what it takes, 1.4 billion people, the youngest population in the world. We are the wealthiest continent in terms of our resources. Let's make sure that we jealously guard each other and every other opportunity that we have and work together. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for what a powerful close. Indeed, in a war of ego, the loser always wins. So we've agreed that we will collaborate, we will work together. Africa is ours. And as AESATA, we will continue to convene these conversational platforms. They're important so that we are able to build cohesion around the agenda. We've decided from a travel agent's perspective that we want to collaborate with the entire value chain for travel so that we can have stronger advocacy. So please be on the lookout. We will have a continuation of this conversation. I think this year we just want to talk about how do we unlock the African potential. So be on the lookout for our next quarter's webinar. We'll be announcing who the speakers are. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to inform you that as you've heard, we have this continuous conversation. And so we are planning our AESATA conference. This is usually a conference of travel agents and other industry stakeholders from the continent, from the region, just to continue this conversation in person, but also to find opportunities for building, B2B relationships and harmonizing our businesses and our thoughts. So our theme this year is Connect, Collaborate, Co-Create. And our conference this year will be happening in Harare, Zimbabwe. So if you're interested in that, please, you can leave your contacts and we'll be able to reach out to you, but also you can reach out to us, info@aesata.org, and we'll be able to give you more details. So thank you very much for staying in long. I think it's almost 2 hours since we started, and we haven't lost many of you on the call. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, AESATA board, for also allowing us to do this. And we look forward to seeing you again in our next engagement soon. Thank you very much, Captain Tibe. Thank you very much, Aaron, for always supporting these conversations. See you next time.
Most welcome. Good day. Bye.
Thank you very much, Nick, and good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Nick. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.